Hi, this is Saranya from the Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science from KIT Kalaignar Karunanidhi Institute of Technology, Coimbatore. Today I am going to take some topics from web publication development from Unit 1, IP addresses, HTTP, web server and web clients. Let us first see what is that IP address is. So IP address, an internet protocol address, is a numerical label assigned to each device connected to a computer network that uses the internet protocol for communication. An IP address serves two main functions: host or network interface identification and local addressing. Internet Protocol version 4 defines an IP address as a 32-bit number, whereas a new version of IPv6 using 128-bit for IP address was developed in 1995 and standardized in December 1998. In July 2017, a final definition of the protocol was published. IP addresses are usually written and displayed in human readable notation such as 172.116.254.1 in IPv4, whereas in IPv6 it takes the 64-bit instead of 32-bit number, so it consists of some hexadecimal notations in the IP address. And then next we are going to see about the IP addresses and classes. So what is an IP address? An IP address or internet protocol address is a unique string of numbers assigned to each device connected to a computer network that uses the internet protocol for communication. It serves as an identifier that allows devices to send and receive data over the network, ensuring that data reaches the correct destination. IPv4. This is the most common form of IP address. It consists of 4 sets of numbers separated by dots. That means there are the 4 segments that each set of numbers can range from 0 to 255. So this format can support over 4 billion unique addresses. For octets, each octet represents 8 bits or a byte and can take a value from 0 to 255. This range is derived from the possible combinations of 8 bits. And then example of IPv4 address is given here. In this there are the 4 separate segments. In that 192.168.1.1, 192 is the first octet and 168 is the second octet, 1 is the third octet and 1 is the fourth octet. So this is the representation of IPv4 address. Let us see the IPv4 address format. So here it is given as 185.107.80.231. Here 1 byte, which is equal to 8 bits, that we all know about that. So 185, that is represented in the binary representation, and then 107 is the same 1 byte representation, and then 80, which is given in the 8 bits representation, and then 231 is given in the 8 bit representation. So 4 bytes, that is equal to 32 bits. So 4 into 8, that is 32 bits. So it is IPv4 is the 32-bit representation of the address format. And the next, IPv6 addresses are created to deal with the shortage of IPv4 addresses. They use 128 bits instead of 32 bits. So they use 128 bits instead of 32 bits. Okay. So offering a vastly great number of possible addresses. These addresses are expressed as 8 groups of 4 hexadecimal digits, each group representing the 16 bits. These groups are separated by colons, and each group which is consisting of a 16-bit block of the address. So the example is given here for the IPv6 address. And then the next we are going to deal with the public IP address. Public IP address is assigned to every device that directly accesses the internet. This address is unique across the entire internet. Its mainly public address is used for uniqueness, accessibility assigned by internet service providers, that means the ISP. Example, a host website on your own server at home. Your ISP must assign a public IP address to your server, so users around the world can access your site. So private IP addresses. Private IP addresses are used within the private networks such as home networks, office networks, etc., and are not routable on the internet. So it is not globally unique, it is a local communication. For that we are going for the private IP address. And then next, these are the private IP address here for each and every, for mobile, for tab, for laptop, for computer. We are having the separate IP address that is known as the private IP address, whereas the public IP address, that is the Wi-Fi or the modem that we have set for the particular organization, that IP address can be accessed through the common forums, that is known as the public IP address. Hi, this is Saranya from the Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science from KIT Kalaignar Karunanidhi Institute of Technology, Coimbatore. Today I am going to take some topics from web publication development from Unit 1, IP addresses, HTTP, web server and web clients. Let us first see what is that IP address is. So IP address, an internet protocol address, is a numerical label assigned to each device connected to your computer network that uses the internet protocol for. Next we are going to see about how do IP addresses work. Unique identification. Every device connected to a network such as computers, smartphones and servers is assigned as an IP address. Communication protocol. Each piece of the data sent over the network is broken into smaller units called packets. Each packet includes both the sender and the recipient IP addresses. Data routing, so that the data can be routed from one node to the another with the help of the IP address. Local area network, which deals with the local networks, that is a local area network within some particular organization. WAN, wide area network, that means we will be globally interacted with the one source to the another destination. And then what about the next? Next we are going to see about network address translation. How these addresses are translated. So there are the IP addresses are classified into different classes based on their range and then intended use. So class A, class B, class C, class D and then class E. Class A, which is used for very large networks, multinational companies, and class B, which is used for the medium sized networks, and class C, which is used for small networks, and class D, which is used for reserved for multicast groups, and class E used for the experimental purpose and for the future use. So for that purpose we are going for the NAT, that is the NAT, network address translation. And the next special IP addresses are some of the addresses are used here. Loopback address, broadcast address, multicast address. Loopback address is used to test some network connectivity in a particular device, and then broadcast address, which is allows the data to be sent to all devices in a network, and then multicast network, which is used to send a data to a group of devices. And the next, IP address security threats. So what are the IP address security threats? One is IP spoofing. IP spoofing, a particular person who will be using the particular IP address of some others and then spoofing the network, sending some unwanted messages and then hacking at the other end. That is known as the IP spoofing. Distributed denial of service. Denial of service means they are sending some unwanted message and then they are just bypassing their service. That is known as the DOS, denial of service attack. Man in the middle attacks, the third party who is acting as the end user at the middle, they will be acting as an end user, authorized end user, and then they are hacking the message sent from the one source, and then they are not at all sending the particular message to the other end. Instead of that, this man in the middle, they are just incorporating some unwanted message and then sending it to the destination. So it will be interrupting the correct and then encrypted usage of message services through the network. That is known as the man in the middle attack. And then port scanning. The port scanning is nothing but they are scanning the particular port and then they are hacking the particular port number, and then instead of the particular authorized user, the third party user will be hacking the port number through port scanning, and then they are acting as a genuine authorized user and then hacking the messages. That is known as the port scanning. And then next we are going to see about the hypertext transfer protocol. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This is it was invented by Tim Berners. The Hypertext Transfer Protocol is specially coded with the help of some standard coding language known as the Hypertext Transfer Markup Language. HTTP provides the standard between a web user and web server to establish the communication. So it is a set of rules for transferring data from one computer to the another. Data such as text, images and other multimedia files are shared through the World Wide Web. And the next, HTTP connection. So HTTP connection that takes place between the client and the server. So here it was this image was taken from the Geeks for Geeks for the experimental for our presentation purpose. So here the HTTP connection which takes place between the client and the server. So the client requests the server for some message and then the server gives the response to the client. So the connection was terminated. Once the exact request, what was the client requested some message from the server. If the particular response was given back to the client, then the connection was terminated. And then characteristics of HTTP. HTTP is the IP based communication protocol that is used to deliver data from client to the server and vice versa. And it is the request and the response protocol based on client and then server requirements. So next we are going to see about the HTTP response is a message sent by the server to the client in the response to an HTTP request. So which is information about the response, and the body which is the actual response or the error message. How does the HTTP protocol work? So HTTP protocol uses the forms of request and response operational mode. When a client wants to retrieve the information, it uses the HTTP request to the server as shown in the following stages. So HTTP response, the server returns the data which the client requested or an error message. This takes place over the internet using the port 80 by default. Now we are going to see about the HTTPS. HTTPS stands for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So what is the difference between the HTTP and the HTTPS? HTTPS means Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure would be the combination of Hypertext Transfer Protocol with the SSL or TLS convention to supply encrypted communication and a secure distinguishing proof of an arranged web server. HTTPS is more secure than HTTP because HTTP is certificated by SSL. Whatever website you are visiting on the internet, if it is URL is HTTP, then the website is not secure. So when we are going for the HTTPS, so what is the HTTPS? Here HTTPS, SSL evolved into the TLS. So HTTPS. So 1994 HTTPS is evolved along with the SSL is evolved into the TLS, and then HTTPS in 2022 becoming a promising secure internet in 2018 when compared to the HTTP. Characteristics of HTTPS. HTTPS encrypts all message substance including the HTTP header and the request response data. The verification perspective of HTTPS requires a trusted third party to sign the server side digital certificates. HTTPS is presently utilized more frequently by web clients than the first non-secure HTTP, fundamentally to ensure page genuineness on all sort of websites, secure accounts, and to keep client communications. Both of these are protocol using which is the information of particular website is exchanged between the web server and web browser, but there are some differences between the two. A conscious difference between the HTTP and HTTPS is that the HTTPS is much more secure compared to the HTTP. And we are going to see about the working of protocol of HTTPS. Hypertext Transfer Protocol is a protocol using which hypertext is transferred over the web. Due to its simplicity, HTTP has most widely used protocol for data transfer over the web, but the data exchange using the HTTP is not secure, as would like it to be. Cryptographic protocols such as SSL or TLS turn the HTTP into HTTPS. So HTTP is nothing but HTTPS is equal to HTTP plus cryptographic protocols. And the next, now we are going to see about the web servers and web clients. So web client. A web client is a software that accesses a web server by sending an HTTP request message and processing the result in the HTTP response. A web client is an application that communicates with the web server using the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Any web client that is designed directly to support the user access to the web server is known as the user agent. So what is the mostly known as the worldwide web browser that are known as the Mosaic, Netscape Navigator or the Internet Explorer. So functions of browser. The primary function of the web browser is to render the HTML, the code used to design or mark up web pages. Each time a browser loads a web page, it processes the HTML, which may include the text, link, and then references to images and other items such as cascading the style sheets and then JavaScript functions. The browser processes these items that renders them into the browser window. So parts of the browser. The parts of the browser are given here. Some common parts of the browser or browser menu. What is the browser menu that you are going to give? Address, location bar, page title, minimize, maximize, close window, status bar, back button, forward button, stop, reference page, address bar, and then main web page. So these are the some parts of the web browser where we will be using to navigate to the particular web page. And then there are the two things, uniform resource locator and then uniform resource name. The uniform resource identifier is a string that associates a particular resource on the web page, and then URN, which means identify the resource using unique names. So they do not signify the location of the resource. It consists of three parts. One is the schema name, another one is the namespace identifier, and the another one is namespace string. So here in the particular syntax is given URM name, that means the resource name, and then the particular identifier name is given as the ISBN number here. And the next, differences between these absolute and relative URL. So absolute URL, which is used to link web pages on different website. Relative URL, which is used to link web page within the same website. So it will be, absolute URL will be difficult to manage. Relative URL, it is easy to manage. Changes when the server name or directory name changes, and then relative URL remains same even if we change the server name or directory name. And then in the absolute URL, it takes some time to access, but in the comparatively, when relative URL, it is comparatively faster when compared to the absolute URL. And the next, web servers. The request to the web pages is sent by the web browser to the server. The server will transfer the requested page to the computer over the internet. So here, when we are requesting when the client is requesting some information to the server will process the particular request and return back to the client in the particular time. Next we are going to see the working of web browsers. The browser broke the URL into three parts. One is known as the protocol server name and the file name. So the browser communicated with the name server to translate the server name, that is for example here it is given as a www.abc.com into an IP address. The web server contains the log records that stores the information about the server activity. Access log file contains information about every HTTP request processed by the server. Message log file contains the variety of debugging and other information generated by the web applications and the web server. The standard input, output and error streams are also logged. So configuring a server. How to configure a server? The following are to be given at the high importance while configuring a server. The first thing is IP addresses and then TCP ports that may be used to connect to this server. Number of substacks that will be created when the server is initialized. Maximum number of threads that will be allowed to exist simultaneously. Maximum number of TCP connection requests that will be queued if the server is already running its maximum number of threads. Length of the time the server will wait after serving an HTTP request over a TCP connection before closing the connection if another request is not received. These are the main things we have to keep it in mind while configuring a server. And the next, logging. Web log file is a log file automatically created and maintained by the web server. Every head to the website, including each view of the HTML document, image or other object is logged. Directory where log file will be written. So pattern information to be written to the log. Prefix string that will be used to begin the log file name. Resolve host, whether IP addresses or false value or host names or true value should be written to the log file. Rotatable, that means whether or not date should be added to the file name and file should be automatically rotated each day. Why we are keeping the log? The date should be maintained for each file and then it should be automatically rotated each day. That thing will be helpful to maintain the access log perfectly in the web. So web log file, and the next suffix, a string that will be used to end the log, that is known as the suffix. And the next we are going to see about the URL. A uniform resource locator is a unique identifier that is contained by all the resources available on the internet. It can help to locate a particular resource due to its uniqueness. It is also known as the web addresses. A URL consists of different parts like protocol, domain name, etc. The users can access the URL by simply typing them inside the address bar or by clicking any button or link web page. So here the particular URL is given as HTTPS, which is giving for secure HTTP page, and then www.geeksforgeeks.org is the URL given here as an example. And the next we are going to see each and every part of the URL here. So HTTPS is the scheme given here, and then domain name is given as www.geeksforgeeks.org. 80, that is the port number which is useful for the HTTP response and then request, and then array data structure is the path to that particular file, and then question mark is the query, and then refer equal to home articles code means the parameters given to take the reference to access that particular page, and then what is an array is the fragment given here. So here domain or the host name. So here the domain or the host name is known as the www.geeksforgeeks.org in the particular URL, and then port name is nothing but the HTTP request and response will be taking place through that port number 80, and then path which refers to the particular file or page stored on the web server to access that particular content of the file, and then query. A query mainly used in the dynamic pages. It consists of that question mark to find the particular URL present or not, and then parameters can be assigned to pass to the URL by using the ampersand symbol to separate them. The query parameter above URL is refer equal to home articles code, and then fragments appear at the end of the URL starts with the hashtag symbol. The internal page references that refers to the specific section within the page. The fragment in the above URL is what is an array, that is given in the particular example. And then uniform resource name, URN, is the string of characters named to identify the intended resource. The URN identifies the resource by the name in the given namespace. It is a location independent. URN is a type of uniform resource identifier. It is the subset of URI. URN allows the descriptive information to associate with it called the uniform resource characters. Uniform resource characters of URN are date, length, etc. The user only need to know the name of the resource to use the URN. URN are persistent. URN requires resolution service to convert names into the real addresses. Here the example URN is given as PQR/XYAZ given here. So there are two types of URI. One is the URL and the another one is the URI. So fragment URI, URN stands for